Mr. Chair and Ranking Member Blumenthal, thank you for holding this hearing, and thank you to all of the commissioners. Thank you for your service and for your testimony and answers today. I want to start by following up on the topic of how we're doing on protecting our kids that Senator Markey started to raise. Earlier this year at the confirmation hearing for most of you, I discussed the possibility of the FTC examining the issue of children in the video game space. Specifically, we discussed loot boxes, which allow in-game purchases with real currency for surprise winnings, and most of you agreed that this is an area that could use additional oversight by the FTC. Loot boxes are now endemic in the video game industry and are present in everything from casual smartphone games to the newest high-budget video game releases. Loot boxes will represent a $50 billion industry by the year 2022, according to the latest research estimates. Children may be particularly susceptible to engaging with these in-game purchases, which are often considered integral components of video games. And just this month, Great Britain's Gambling Commission released a report finding that 30% of children have used loot boxes in video games. The report further found that this exposure may correlate with a rise in young problem gamblers in the United Kingdom. Belgium, the Netherlands, Japan, and other countries have all moved to regulate the use of loot boxes in video games, given this close link to gambling. So given the seriousness of this issue, I think it is in fact time for the FTC to investigate these mechanisms to ensure that children are being adequately protected and to educate parents about potential addiction or other negative impacts of these games. Would you commit to undertaking this project and keeping this committee informed about it?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm seeing nodding heads.
Yes.
Okay. Wonderful, thank you. I also wanted to follow up on something that I know is of an interest to Commissioner Slaughter and Commissioner Wilson. You mentioned it too, so maybe I'll start with you, Commissioner Slaughter, and then we'll let anybody else who wants to respond. We've discussed that the heroin, fentanyl, and opioid crisis is our most pressing public health and safety challenge, facing both my home state of New Hampshire and the home states of just about everybody in the United States Senate. It's taking a massive toll on our communities, our workforce, our economy. So we all understand that this is an epidemic that impacts people from all walks of life in every corner of every state, and it really requires a concerted, all-hands-on-deck response and approach, including from agencies that may not traditionally be focused on some of the issues that the epidemic presents. It's my understanding that the investigations surrounding deceptive marketing practices with regard to products like opioids, and Commissioner Wilson, you mentioned recovery programs as well, but it's my understanding that right now these are handled through a 1971 Memorandum of Understanding between the FTC and the FDA. Is the protocol from 1971 working specifically for opioids, or should we revisit this to ensure that we're doing all we can to fight the epidemic? And I'll start with you, Commissioner Slaughter.
Thank you for the question, Senator. As a parent, as a person, the opioid epidemic literally keeps me up at night, and I agree with you that it is something that requires an all-hands-on-deck. Too many of these addictions start with legal prescriptions in the first place, and so I think one of the really important tools we need to apply is all collective efforts to keep people from getting addicted to begin with. And I think it is a great idea for the FTC, the FDA, DOJ to all sit down together and consider how we can best employ the statutory tools at all of our disposal to most effectively combat this epidemic where it starts.
Thank you. Commissioner Wilson, would you like to comment?
I agree with Commissioner Slaughter's comments. I would also like to note my understanding since I arrived is that the FTC and the FDA have been working closely on ways to combat this problem together.
Right.
They have sent out letters to marketers of products that appear to have false claims, but I agree that if there are ways that we can work more closely together, we should be doing that.
Thank you. Anyone else want to comment?
I guess I'll just say that we now know years later that the maker of OxyContin knew that their drug was very addictive, being snorted, and they continued to advertise it as the less addictive pill. Now, if we don't figure out how to sanction companies like this, we will see this happen again in a
Right.
different field. So we need to see all of this that is happening is downstream from that.
Yep.
We know that what happened, we did not get justice there. And so we have to be on alert and maybe be thinking broadly about how are we going to hold pharmaceutical companies accountable when they break the law repeatedly. You know, we grant them government patents for them to promote innovation, but when they consistently abuse it, we really need to think about what the sanction should be.
Thank you all for that, and I look forward to working with you all on it. Thank you, and thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Cortez Masto.